Welcome to Basic Scholars. I'm Shami, and today we're going to be talking about AP Government Unit 3.10 Social Movements and Equal Protection. Grab your scuba mask because today we're going to be diving deep. Our learning objective for today is to explain how constitutional provisions have supported and motivated social movements. Prior to the Civil War, the question of slavery was usually left to the states because the federal and the state governments didn't really care about the civil rights of black people. And so, after the Civil War, since the North had a sparse black population, they still didn't really care about the civil rights of their black population. In 1909, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People was created, and by 1919 they had around 90,000 members. They began to use a lobbyist to lobby policies in favor of supporting the black population and their civil rights. And this led to the 1915 SCOTUS case, Ginn v. United States. Ginn versus United States is a non-required case, but its result was very important because it ruled that the grandfather clause exemptions to literacy tests for voting rights were in violation of the 15th Amendment. And that ruled that the grandfather clause couldn't be used anymore. But it still didn't rule that literacy tests were considered to be unconstitutional. Moving on now to women's rights, which was first led by Susan B. Anthony, who was their main lead suffragist. So a suffragist is a protester for women's rights. And soon they got their well-deserved win, which was the 19th Amendment, which allowed women to actually vote. And they continued to protest because women didn't get equal pay, women didn't get equal rights in education. So their other win was the Equal Pay Act of 1963, which gave them the equivalent pay of the male in the job that they're in. And then that also soon created the organization called now National Organization of Women. And moving on, that soon inspired women to also start fighting for educational rights, which created Title IX of the 1972 Civil Rights Act, which stated that women could not be so that education could not be segregated or divided based on the basis of sex or any other race. And that involved the strict scrutiny test, meaning that every law that was created that included these terms for education or equal pay or anything else had to be narrowly tailored to not avoid any mistreatment of any of the races or any of the genders. And then now we have the LGBTQ movement, which was to regain rights for gay and lesbian and all members of the LGBTQ association. And one of their major standoffs was in Lawrence v. Texas in 2003, where it was outlawed that you could not have sexual intercourse with another person of the same sex. So that meant that LGBTQ rights were taken away, essentially. And then there was the don't ask, don't tell policy in the military, where no one could ask each other of their genders, or they couldn't tell each other that they were gay or part of the LGBTQ association. And this really spurred some debates on why this was created. And then there was the DAMA Act, which was the Defense of Marriage Act. A Supreme Court case called Obergefell v. Hodges in 2015 decided that same-sex marriages did not violate the Constitution, so that really gave a boost for LGBTQ associations. Now moving on to one of the most important and most influential movements of all time is the sexual harassment and workplace discrimination movement. Recently, we had a Supreme Court case called Bostock v. Clayton County in 2020 that stated that it was wrong to have workplace discrimination, and it was deemed that in 1986, Meritor Savings Bank v. Vinson, a Supreme Court case that ruled that workplace sexual assault really impacted the environment and made it very hostile for the person to work in. All these cases eventually led to the Me Too movement in social media, where victims of sexual assault would say hashtag Me Too in support of other victims of sexual assault. And that marks the end of 3.10, and that's all you need to know. I'll see you next time. Make sure to subscribe.